Please all rise and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for coming to the public session of the Board of Trustees. It's May 22nd. Beginning in order, we have public comment first. Does anybody would like to make a public comment?
About what?
Anything.
Anything you'd like.
Anything you're so inclined to speak about, if you like, other than what's scheduled. You have 3 minutes to do something.
But you got to come up front here, Ben.
Okay.
But we also, is it anything to what we're already going to discuss in our...
He's at the beginning end.
Oh, I got this wrong. I always get things wrong. It's about the Southampton Arts Center.
Nope, that's coming up.
We have that coming up.
Yep.
See, it set me up.
It's all right. I always get it wrong, too. With that said, we're moving ahead to board presentations. And the first board presentation we have is Gary.
Good evening. Let you know I haven't been before you for a very long time to ask for equipment. It's actually the first two pieces of equipment this year that I'll ask you for the Parks Department. We are looking to replace two pieces of old machinery. The first one would be a backhoe loader for the Parks Department. The old loader is a 1998 New Holland, pretty worn out, sloppy, has a lot of rust, oil leaks, etc. So we're looking to replace that with a new Cat 420 F2 at a price tag of $125,855. That's an NJPA price, so if you would allow us to purchase that, we do not have to go out to bid. That's a con. Actually,
On the parks, we're 135, but he got a better price. That was the original estimate.
Oh, okay. That's nice.
He's holding off on a payloader.
Originally I was going to come before you for a payloader tonight as well, but we're going to hold off on that because we haven't made a final decision on the exact one we'd like. So back to this one, $125,855. Because it is a CAT HO pen, it is a company we've dealt with quite a lot in the past. So our parks supervisor, Steve Phillips, this is the machine he would like, as well as Kenny Zay, who runs Central Garage, would also be very happy if we had this machine. We've also looked at a case backhoe loader for about the same price, $126,000, and we just felt this one fit our needs a little bit better, a little more compact. This backhoe would mostly be used for tree planting around the village, but it will be used for trenching, grading, etc. in all our parks.
And the old one's a 1998, you said.
1998, and we would like to trade that in. We don't have an exact figure on that, but it would be somewhere around $6,000 in value. Like I say, it's a pretty worn out machine.
I'd like one of those, too. That's a pretty nice machine.
Yeah, actually,
Here's the old one.
Steve, I just have a couple of these, but take one of
Oh. That's great.
You ever seen that, Bob the Builder?
Did everyone see that? Very nice. It's
Why
been
does it say Tonka
operative
on
for
the side?
What's that?
Why does it say Tonka on the side?
In addition to the picture you see there, we would be adding forks to it just for material moving around the yard on pallets. We would also buy a snow chute for it to help us with plowing parking lots in the off-season.
See a picture of the Bob the Builder machine?
Questions?
Is the snow chute included in the price, or is that additional?
No, it's included in that price of the $125,855. The forks and the snow chute are probably about a $5,000 addition to the base price.
Now, you say snow chute. Is that a snow blower, is that what you're saying?
No, it's the strap-on container that goes on the front of the bucket.
To pick this snow up?
Yeah, it just makes it a little bit wider. You know, because the bucket on that, I think, is like a 1.3 cubic yard, and that would basically, you know, a little more than double the capacity of the snow that you push around.
Okay. And you're looking for a lawnmower, too?
I am. Should I go on, or would you like to discuss this one first?
Do we have any questions?
No,
Well,
picture. We got
How long does equipment usually last like this? This is 20 years. It sounds like that's a pretty good,
That's a pretty good run.
a good run, actually.
Yeah,
Isn't it 30
I don't
years?
have the exact, but
30
even for a municipality, it has like a 5,000
30 years.
hour limit on the machine right now. Private sector, of course, that would be much higher. But we always think of a 5-year or 7-year replacement schedule, which then gets turned into a 10-year, and some of these machines, they just have to go and go until we can't fix them anymore. And it's kind of just costing us more to fix it than it's worth at this point.
And plus, this gets used on the beach.
Yes.
So, I mean, a lot of people, you know, the fact that you got 20 years out of it, not just with its normal wear and tear, but the fact to get subjected to the sea, air, and so forth, and the sand.
Yeah,
That
the
alone-
98 was on the beach quite a bit, you know, opening the Agawam pipe up.
Right. So, I mean, that alone shortens the lifespan of what we use.
Okay.
Should you look at that John Deere we have on the beach and use that as a backhoe, or
With the-
that's a lot lighter machine?
The current John Deere
Yeah.
that we have?
Yeah.
Well, we do have a large John Deere in the highway department right now that has taken over that beach duty.
The raking, use that for the raking, right?
Well, actually, we have little tractors that pull the rake, like at Cooper's. We have a large John Deere that is currently used by the highway department. So this New Holland that used to dig that pipe out all the time, we only had one. And about 5 years ago, we decided to go have 2 units because the parks and the highway both needed the unit every day. So we have one for each department now. So the John Deere that we have in the highway department would continue to open that pipe up. This one would be specifically for parks or if that other unit went down.
Any further questions?
but I also think, I will say this, because you and I had a conversation that Kenny Zay had said that he can't fix it anymore. The 1998 is so bad that they can't really fix it anymore.
It would be a total refurbishment of it, and I don't have dollar figures to tell you, but he's just basically saying it's not worth the time and effort to put into the machine any longer.
So I don't think we have a choice.
When those hydraulics go.
sometimes you can't even get the parts. Right.
You can get them, but like I say, it's, you know, if you're fixing one thing, the next thing is breaking. And a lot of the controls just get so sloppy from the thing being, you know, slapped back and forth that it becomes, you know, tens of thousands instead of just 1,000 here or there.
So can we go on to the mower now?
Sure. Did you want to approve that, or you want to talk about both of them at the same time? It's 2 different companies.
That was a good sales pitch, by the
It's
way.
up to
ABC, always be closing.
I'll continue if you like.
Yeah, let's talk about the mower.
Okay, so the mower is a purchase would be from Malvisi. It's a Jacobson HR 700. This would be a 14-foot cut mower. We currently have 3 11-foot cut mowers. One of the mowers is getting older. It does not cut evenly anymore. The mower that we would like to replace, that mower could still be used for field cutting somewhere, but to cut our athletic fields, our parks and everything, it doesn't give an even cut anymore. So it's a very sloppy type of cut. We would resell that machine. I don't have a trade-in number on it. But we're looking is to take one of those 3 11-foot cuts. That machine is a 2003 we'd like to sell, replace it with a 14-foot cut. And I told Nancy earlier today, what we've had since we put the rollover protection on the museum, machines that's required, we can't get under the trees much anymore, and we're actually having to take all our trees and raise them way up, just so the machines can get tight. With the 14-foot cut, the wing could get closer to the tree trunk. It would be helpful. And obviously, an extra 3 foot in each pass is, more productivity. So we're looking to replace an 03 with a new one. It's very expensive for a lawnmower. It's a $70,000 unit. We did look at an 11-foot cut is available for about $60,000 in the Jacobson. And there's also a John Deere that's available in that $55,000 to $60,000 range too. Those are really the only mowers that they're using out here for turf. And the preference is to go for the Jacobson, and the Parks Department would really like to go for the 14-foot cut, if you so allow.
Do they ride on that, or do they walk on it?
No, it's a riding mower.
It's a big machine.
It's a good size.
14-foot cut.
No, it's a very comfortable ride. It's got all the bells and whistles. It'll have cruise control and everything. So when you're out there mowing, you're
Is there GPS on it?
We could.
It's turbocharged.
I didn't ask, but it probably has it built in.
So explain with the three pieces of the three mowers, the three 11-foot mowers, where do they all go? Because one we want to retire and sell, so we have the two others. Where will those go, and where will this mostly work?
Most mowers, we will use 2 mowers in each area. The largest is the athletic fields up at Flying Point. We have other green belt areas that we use, like Aldridge Lane is a big cut area. We do cut off of White Street by your condo, Bill. We clean all those green belts. We cut, Agawam Park. We cut the firehouses. We cut Old Town, all that green belt there. And basically they get alternated around. But this new unit would spend most of its life up at Flying Point, because that is our most important area to be cut on constantly. And that would be a 14 and 11 up there at the same time usually. And Steve had said that with the 3 machines, it does take about 1 week to cut all our properties, amongst our other duties. So if we got rid of one, we would have to replace it. I don't know if that answers.
It does. So it takes a week, and then you start all over again.
Pretty much.
The other mowers, sorry, Bill. The other mowers, one's listed as a propane, one's listed as electric, so this is...
When we talked about going green for some mowers, we talked about finding a green zone like the town has been doing. Those would be much smaller mowers. I believe those are the 52-inch.
Okay.
We did look into, this would be an aside, but we did look into a company called Greenworks that has a 52-inch cut for $20,000 for an electric mower. And the town has one they call Green Machine, and that's about $24,000. Grotsky Mowers in Southampton is a distributor of the Greenworks, and we called them for a June demo.
Great.
I think we spoke in the past, we wanted to wait till we had active growing grass to actually get a good demo in to make sure they can make it through the thick grass. So these are 2 different animals. Those size mowers would be used on our smaller properties, historical, some of the firehouses that are smaller, over at the Parish Art Museum, where we have a lot of more obstacles to go around. Right. We do currently have 52 and 60-inch mowers that we do and use in those areas, but we could phase them into electric if we wanted to.
And Gary, tell me, do we have a trailer that mower would fit on?
We do have 2 trailers that it will fit on, but we typically just drive that to the location.
Okay.
We can run that about 20 miles an hour down the road.
From the yard? You go over to Flying Point on that, from the yard? Wow.
Interesting.
They kind of do a circuit around, they hit one, then the next, and the next.
Well, in my mind, definitely the backhoe is definitely needed. And as far as the 14-foot, if we have to get rid of the 2003, we have to replace it with something, 14-foot would be the way to go. but I'm only one person on this board, so.
That's also an NJPA contract. We found that on for $70,716.
Can you get us the breakdown on the pricing of the trade-in on the payloader?
On the payloader, I could.
I mean, you have it approximately, but
Well, right now, we had a number of 6,000, but that was not confirmed as it, so, you know, if we want to purchase it tonight, I wouldn't have that information available.
Yeah.
Unless you want to,
I would like to wait and see what the trade-in value is.
Okay.
So we know at least what the real numbers are.
again, it's about $6,000, but I don't have an exact figure.
And that Jacobson mower, I would like to see the other three too, because Jacobson is a pretty fancy
Okay.
piece of equipment.
Oh, it definitely is.
Yeah.
What would you like to see the other three?
Well, you said you had two other machines that you were looking at.
Well, it was a lower size Jacobson, an 11-foot cut, and we also looked at a John Deere
Okay.
mower. And basically, it was just a personal preference for the Parks Department. They run 3 Jacobsons now. They wanted to stay with that.
How much was the
So-
John Deere? Around the same price?
The John Deere was like $55,000 to $60,000 based on what was coming in, as compared to the Jacobson 11-foot cut was $60,000.
Oh,
So,
so the John Deere was for 11-foot cut, not a 14.
correct.
Okay, all right, so that's the price difference right there. So basically, if you went to 14, Jacobson's the only one that does it?
Correct.
14-foot? All right, so that kind of narrows it down to the options.
It really does. I mean, you can, in the 11-foot, there's even a Toro unit out there, but there wasn't a lot of confidence, in Central Garage on that.
Well, I know Kenny Zay in Central Garage likes to keep things simple. If you have multiple machines already, Jacobson, then you're ordering one company machine parts as opposed to a couple. I know that's his word on it.
And I think if you go around and look at all the fields and golf courses, that's the machine you're generally going to see
That's
everywhere.
that's right. But I mean, the big thing there is that the only one that has 14-foot is the Jacobson.
Jacobson.
So that's pretty much,
Yeah, the only other way to do it would be a tow behind.
that's, all right. So there really is no option.
So my question is, the 11-inch, which was an older model, could not get under and around the trees. 11 foot, 11 inches wouldn't get us under.
Yeah,
11 foot.
In the past, there was a practice that the rollover protection that would come with these mowers was not put on. And of course, we have to have that on, so it's being enforced,
That means you have to raise the canopy.
basically so.
Okay, so but the
But you said you didn't
14-footer.
have to do it with the 14-foot.
No, because that little extra cut,
Reaches
the
ass.
wing,
So we don't have to be as aggressive cutting the trees.
correct.
Okay.
Okay.
For safety concerns, obviously, we have to abide by with the rollover protection.
Okay, I think we're going to discuss this, right?
Yes, unless you would like to vote now on it.
I don't have a problem with the 14-footer for the reasons he says.
Yeah.
I mean, Nancy just pointed out she agreed to 14-footer, so, but you said there's no other options unless you want to just change it completely to go to 11-footer. Then there's a discussion involved. But if you want to do,
The only other alternate was that, like I say, you would buy an individual tractor, and then
behind.
you would tow it behind,
Yeah.
but it's not quite the same.
Nope.
And I believe most of those are real cuts.
It's only 10% more for more safety and more efficiency, so,
Right.
Pretty much, yeah.
and you don't even know what the trade-in is, so you may get a little more than 6 on the other one.
Well, they did not want our old mower for a trade-in, so
no,
we would
that
try to
was-
sell
okay.
that.
that was for
The payloader.
Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody who could handle a much rougher cut, somebody who's just cutting a field and doesn't really care other than it's short, that would be the ideal situation. But Malvisi was not interested in a trade-in value on it.
Not for the moment, no.
So if you all are comfortable, I'd like to make a motion to go ahead and purchase a 14-foot Jacobson mower.
Happy with that? I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
And are you waiting on the backhoe because you want to understand the
Well, I want to see
6,000?
what the pricing is,
Okay.
and the trade-in, and what we're getting, and that's a much bigger machine.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
All right, thank you.
Gary, did you say you would try and keep them away from cutting Cooper's Farm Road till 8 o'clock in the morning so that my wife doesn't leave me?
I have to say that publicly?
No, actually, no, I wouldn't answer that question.
Bill, I wouldn't want you to have to get him
He can ask it, don't answer it.
Wives are expensive, so I don't want to.
I will certainly talk to Steve Phillips and see what we can schedule over there.
Can you get the guy in trouble?
And I want to ride on that Jacobson at 20 miles an hour down Main Street, you know?
Well, I think it's almost a requirement. You have to get in the press with a photo. And, I think that's what Jay does in the
Yeah,
town.
that's right. Supervisor does it, so there you go.
All right, and I'll get back to you on the other.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
Moving ahead on board presentations, we have Southampton Arts Center.
All right. Mr. Mayor, members of the Village Board, good evening. My name is Tom Dunn. I'm the Executive Director of Southampton Arts Center. On the behalf of our Board of Directors and my colleagues, I want to thank you for this opportunity to present before this body.
But Tom, before you go further, we'd all like to welcome you to the
Yes.
Village of Southampton.
Thank you very much.
Like everybody in the audience the same.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I feel that welcome every day that I'm here, so thank you.
I hope so.
Good.
Yeah, good.
By way of brief introduction, I've been on the job for 6 weeks now. I come to SAC after 2 decades of work in the creative sectors and nonprofit cultural organizations in New York City. Most recently, I was a member of the management team at Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts for the last 16 years. On the personal side, I'm a Long Islander, born and raised, with strong family ties to the East End, so it's a real privilege for me to work in and serve this community. I wanted to start this evening's presentation by sharing and highlighting SAC's mission. Southampton Arts Center delivers a diverse slate of cultural programming, including visual arts, film, live performances, talks, wellness, sustainability, and children's activities. We present the highest quality public programs, both independently and through partnerships with world-class artists, performers, educators, and other collaborative institutions. Our mission is to serve the East End community as a hub for arts and culture while preserving this iconic building and grounds for future generations. SAC was founded in 2011 by a group of dedicated community activists and philanthropists, in collaboration, of course, with leadership from the Village of Southampton. The story of SAC is one of steady growth and ongoing tangible community impact. In 5 short years, the number of both of our programs and visitors have quadrupled, growing from 10,000 visitors in 2013 to 40,000 last year, and from 50 programs to now over 200 annually. In 2017, our program expanded to a year-round operation, and since our opening, we're very proud to note that we've featured more than 150 East End artists. There's another number I want to share, and that's 501c3. Since our founding, thank you. Since our founding, Southampton Arts Center, as an independent nonprofit organization, has raised nearly $4 million in private donations, and we're very proud of that fact. All of which was used to underwrite our programs, improve and restore our grounds, and sustain our operations. As I mentioned earlier, central to our creative business model is partnership with other cultural organizations. As such, over the last 5 years, SAC has presented programs in collaboration with over 60 locally and internationally renowned partners, a handful of whom are represented on this slide. This partnership model has enabled SAC to programmatically hit the ground running and has turned Southampton Village into an artist magnet, attracting scores of world-class artists and organizations who are eager to partner with us. As an independent nonprofit organization, SAC creates, manages, and funds our annual operating budget. As you can see on this chart, we've got an indication, an illustration of SAC's growth and increased reach over the last 5 years. Our operating budget has tripled since 2013, moving from $400,000 to $1.2 million this year. I'm extremely proud to report that even with this consistent growth, SAC has delivered modest surpluses in each of our operating years. Corresponding with this budget and program growth, you'll note that SAC's reach and attendance continues to move north as well, to where we are projecting 42,500 visitors this year. By way of specific example, I noted that SAC's 2018 operating budget is projected to come in at $1.2 million. I thought I'd take a moment to talk about that. So that amount covers our 200-plus planned programs this year, as well as our production, our marketing, and our operating costs. It also covers our small but highly effective staff, which is comprised of 3 full-time and 2 part-time professionals. On the revenue side, you'll note that we are projecting almost $1 million in contributed income this year. This is comprised of giving from our board of directors, underwriting from program sponsorship, revenue from our annual Summerfest Gala, which I hope you'll all be at, some county dollars, as well as individuals responding to our annual appeal. As for earned income, the 200+ thousand that I've noted is revenue from our programs, that's ticket sales, et cetera, and income from rentals of our facility. On that, I do want to note that this summer we are instituting a modest $5 suggested donation for admission into our galleries. It's suggested, it's not mandatory. Children under 12 are free, and if we're not going, anyone is still welcome, of course, but I think it's a move in the right direction to create some new revenue streams for the center. As you can see, we are at the moment forecasting a modest deficit, though the year's only half over, and we're continuing to work hard to get that back into the black. Importantly, as the facility and grounds at 25 Jobs Lane are owned by the village, SAC also gratefully receives in-kind support from the village of Southampton in the form of gratis rent and operational and facility upkeep. Over the past few years, the village has also generously underwritten capital improvements that support our performances, events, and daily operations. And finally, I'd be remiss not to thank the village for sharing Julie Fitzgerald with us. Over the last few years, Julie has worn a lot of important hats at SAC, and we're grateful for that. She's been an integral part of our team.
She certainly has.
Yes, so we're grateful for the support and for the true partnership that we have with you, Mayor Irving, and with the village board. A couple other points before I invite Amy to talk about our summer program. I want to talk about the building and the grounds. I think it's important to note that when SAC was founded, 25 Jobs Lane was essentially an empty building. With the help of the village, we've slowly and strategically invested in bringing this iconic location back to life. We began to awaken and activate the grounds. We opened the fencing to the west, which now provides easier and more welcoming access to the west lawn. We've repurposed 2 previously unused spaces, turning one of them into an artist green room and bridal suite, and another into the studio at SAC, which houses our artists in residence and our classes for our patrons. These improvements are helping us serve our audiences, create much-needed revenue, and fulfill our mission. So now I would like to invite Amy to just say a few brief words about our exciting summer. Thank you.
Hard to be brief when you're talking about 100 and something programs this summer. Thank you, Tom. We're really so thrilled to have you on our team, and you fit very well. We're really lucky to have you. And thank you, Mayor Irving and members of the board. Obviously, you are incredibly supportive of us, and we really appreciate it, and Julie, of course. I'm Amy Kerwin, and much like Meghan Markle, I am newly crowned as artistic director. I don't wear it, it's hidden in my curls. So I joined the team exactly 2 years ago, and, go back. It's been a really wonderful and gratifying experience seeing people enjoy everything that we do, and it's really wonderful, like I said. And I want to thank you all here today for being so welcoming of me. I haven't been here very long, so it's very, very nice. In my new role, I plan to expand our robust partnership model by continuing to collaborate with those who have been so much a part of our early successes, and to seek our new programmatic partners far and wide, creating more thought-provoking, socially and culturally relevant, and world-class offerings. A few moments ago, Tom shared our mission as an institution, and I'd like to talk about how those words jump off the page every day at SAC. We all know that 25 Jobs Lane is beloved by all as an iconic landmark, and it is our responsibility to make it more than just a cherished structure, but we are tasked with giving it life. Every person that visits, performs, exhibits, teaches, and celebrates with us makes our walls reverberate with spirit and vitality, and that is what truly makes Southampton Arts Center the hub of the village. At SAC, we endeavor to focus on the themes critical to the East End of Long Island, always taking inspiration from the region. A perfect example of this is our annual East End Collected exhibition, curated by Patton Miller, who's here, which just finished its 4th iteration this past Sunday. I'm sad to see it go. And over the past 4 years, this series has featured much more than over 120 East End artists, and never the same one twice. Not even Patton, he's only done it once as well. He's only been in it once. Our next exhibition, Light on Shadow, opens this Saturday. It's being installed as we speak, and it focuses on the oceans of the world and their inhabitants. But photographer Sean Heinrichs is also very much inspired by our local marine conservation efforts and the state of our waters. We hope that you'll be able to come and join us this Saturday for the opening from 5 to 8:30. In the vein of last summer's hand-picked exhibition, which showcased the collection of Southampton resident Henry Buell, we are inspired to explore a similar path with another member of our community, architect and preeminent art collector Peter Marino. Just announcing this. Our second summer exhibition, Counterpoint, addresses the influence that shaped Marino's career and lifelong commitment to the integration of art and architecture, and will feature major works by generations of pioneering 20th century artists, including George Baselitz, Robert Mapplethorpe, Anselm Kiefer, Damien Hirst, Andy Warhol, and more. So as you can see, it's a very exciting summer at SAC. It's very important for us to make sure that what we do is accessible for everyone, which is why so many of our programs are free of charge, including everything that we do on the West Lawn. For the first time this summer, there is a specific theme for our popular outdoor film series. The annual collaboration with Hampton's International Film Festival will be dedicated solely to films written and or directed by Steven Spielberg. His movies have always been a big draw on our every summer when we show them, and so this year we have a lineup of everyone's favorites. And in addition to our summer film series, since upgrading the theater with your help, we have committed to showing dynamic features and documentaries weekly, every Friday year-round, specifically timing them early enough to encourage attendees to take part in our new initiative, Dine and Discuss, where we select a different local restaurant each week to sort of host post-film discussions where friends and strangers can go and dine and support the restaurant and keep the conversation going. Our outdoor concert series includes talent from far and wide, with summer staples this year with Winston Irie and Selective Security Band, Buddy Merriam and Backroads, and the Hoodoo Loungers, and 2 special concerts representing international talents, Nations United, led by Paul Simon's legendary South African bassist Pakiti Kumalo, and the Madao Trio from Italy. We will also present our first live dance performance with the Dance Cartel's homage to the golden age of cinema, which is very exciting. Over the course of the summer, we will entertain hundreds of children with our free Thursday afternoon programming, which includes co-presentations with Cornell Cooperative Extension Marine Program, Rogers Memorial Library, Children's Museum of the East End, and Bridgehampton Chamber Music Festival, to name a few. Another means of activating our spaces in unexpected ways is with our wellness programming. In addition to yoga, dance, and others, we have recently added an immersive sound meditation in the galleries that takes inspiration from the works on view to meditate on, looking and then looking again to perhaps find something unexpected in the art in your deeper state of relaxation. We could all use that a little bit right now. I should have invited Daniel to do that, but I did want to mention that one of the great things about being a multidisciplinary cultural center is that we are not confined by a specific type of programming. The sky is the limit, and we like to listen to what interests our patrons. Sustainability is a perfect example of this, and Dorothy Riley's right here, and she's a big supporter of our sustainability programming. This past April, with Dorothy, we completed a full weekend of Earth Day events, including films, a day-long Earth Summit, and a family celebration and fair. Being able to educate and entertain is crucial, and it's our obligation to provide a home for these types of programs. Though not taking place this summer, it's worth mentioning that for the past few months, the public has been invited to work with artist Francisco Alvarado Juarez, painting and cutting hundreds of paper bags to be included in Light of the Ocean, which will be on view from October through December. We also worked with Southampton, Tuckahoe, Sag Harbor, and Hampton-based teachers to enable them to bring this workshop into their classrooms, which means their bags will also be part of this, not only this exhibition, but everywhere Francisco goes with it, and he's been doing this since 1996. And these 5,000 bags has been carried over since then, so we will be part of that as he goes on. This immersive installation will include 4 video projections with footage shot on the East End, approximately 30 large-scale paintings, more than 5,000 colorful paper bags, sand-covered floors, and shells from our local beaches, engaging nearly all the senses. A 2-week open installation will allow passersby to come and be part of the process of creating an art exhibit, and it will be a wonderful opportunity to engage our local students to earn that vital community service credit. And finally, before I hand it back to Tom to close, I'd like to say that our doors are literally open to you. We hope that by keeping our front door open, weather permitting, we set the tone that all are welcome and that Southampton Arts Center is your place to come home to experience and enjoy all that you can imagine and beyond.
Thank you. That was great.
One last thing just to conclude. The SAC work is only just beginning. As you heard from Amy, we've got a very exciting summer plan. We're about to roll out our Friends Circle, an opportunity to engage real relationships with friends who've been supportive of us over the years, so that'll happen this summer. We intend to work more closely with Southampton schools, endeavoring to align our programs with district-wide curriculum. We also plan to expand our donor base, create new revenue streams, and concretize our infrastructure and operations. This is all with a view towards building Southampton Arts Center into a sustainable operation, a dynamic cultural hub, and an economic engine that'll serve this community for generations to come. We do sincerely thank you for your partnership, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Oh, Tom, thank you. You know, SAC is such an important focal point in the village of Southampton. You know, after the parish had left, everybody on Job's Lane would complain that people would start walking down the street and they'd stop.
Right.
Because there was nothing there. And they'd just turn around and go back. And to see you guys thrive, to see all your board members here, and to see the enthusiasm that you put into it and such dedication to is the village is the lucky ones. You know, it's a pleasure that you're there. And that's such a magnificent building. I mean, I think you should run tours through there because it's so uniquely designed and there's so many features that are still hidden away. It's like a little gem.
An excellent thought, and we'll definitely look into it. Anyway, but thank you again, all of you. And we brought some summer brochures that are hot off the presses, so we invite all of you to take them with you when you go, and we look forward to seeing you this summer and beyond. So thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Any comments about SAC?
There you go. Now,
I'm taking my coat because I have to go shoot pool.
No. Are you any good at it?
What's that?
Are you any good at it?
Yeah, I'm good and bad.
How do you know,
Depends on
Wayne?
how the night goes, you know? You know how sports are. It's up and down, right? Anyway, my name is Patton Miller, and I'm about 6 years ago, I was asked to join everybody at David Bonnet's house for a think tank. And I was asked my opinion as an artist. And I said, well, you're going to start an art organization at the old parish. It would really be good to do shows that relate to the area because you want people to love the place. And as Amy said, over the last 4 shows, we've covered 130 artists and not repeating anybody. And the shows have continually been strong. People, in fact, say to me that the shows are getting stronger, but that's not true because the artists have been consistently good. The only thing that's gotten better is me curating the shows. That's true, because an important aspect of curating these shows is it sounds simple, but sculpture. Because you got this big building, and if it's just paintings on the wall, they're kind of lonely. But the sculptures really put it together. But my point I wanted to make, because it's been covered already, is how important it is. Now, 130 artists in 4 shows, all those artists have families, and they're part of our community. And when the membership drive starts, I hope that these people remember who was in their corner for them. I do believe that the Southampton Arts Center is beloved by the community, because every time I curate these shows, I get a lot of feedback saying, I'm working in my studio, and it seems like a lot of the museums don't pay any attention to me. And I'll tell you something, it's amazing. I've exhibited artists with huge careers at these shows, and other artists who are completely unknown. And in some funny way, they're the most interesting to me. There was one fella named Peter Daszkowski. Do you know how to say his last name? I can never get it right. But he...
Rich?
You know him?
That sounds about right. Did better than you would. I say it. Did better than you would.
I saw his work at the Rogers Memorial Library, and this guy's completely unknown, and it's a sophisticated body of work. What I think is happening at the Southampton Arts Center is profound. I think it's making a big impact on the East End of on our community, and just wanted to, and also what you said, Mike, about how important it is for the business of the village.
Oh, it is.
So I'm done. Thank you.
Shooting pool.
Any other comments?
No, I'm good. Good
Yes, sir.
presentation.
Well, I grew up down the street. 67 years ago, I was
Your name
born
for the
here.
record, please?
Dorothy Riley. And I used to come to the old parish, and my 3 sisters and I would play 4 hands on the piano. And I dreaded that place. It was just old and stodgy, and all it addressed was the summer community. And now it's come alive. And it's not just that they have all this diverse programming that they're working on, but they're really working with all of the elements of our culture here, all of the different elements of our year-round community and the summer community as well. And that's really amazing that you can blend all of those things together. And I really commend your board and Amy and Tom and Julie for putting this together. I think it's thriving like it never has before, and I really look forward to all the programs they have. It's just wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Well
you.
said. Thank you.
I'd like to say. I want to take the opportunity.
Good.
And I was not prepared to say anything, but I think another aspect, my name is Fairleigh Polaro. I live in the village. That I have, Patton Miller is the one who got me involved. He pulled me aside and was talking about this building, which I really didn't know. I was only newly a year-round member. Prior to that, I had been a summer person. And he engaged me along with CMAC. You were there at that meeting as well, and what the prospect of renovating the buildings and what they were going to do with the buildings. And I literally went to Mayor Epley and said, I want to be involved. I want to volunteer. I want to be involved. And the next thing I know, I'm on the board. But of probably the third startup 501c3 in my lifetime, which was not exactly, but anyway, I have loved every minute of it. But one thing that I think is very important, and it comes into play with kind of what my involvement with the center has been, is the volunteers that have come through, specifically kids in the intermediate school, the high school, and some as young as the elementary school, although they kind of push our limits as chaperones of volunteers. And I think it's, a couple of years ago, an article was done in the press on the haunted house and all the volunteer work that went into not only putting the house together, painting, building, but also their favorite part was acting as a volunteer, a vampire, or a zombie in the house. And unfortunately, I don't even remember who interviewed me, but it was something like close to 1,000 hours from the start to finish of volunteer time, and predominantly done by kids or under 18. And I was really proud of that number, and I think we all were really proud of that number. And encourage and inspire, hopefully, those numbers to grow and those hours to grow. Because, again, as part of this community, I think the volunteers that come through there feel a sense of ownership with respect to whatever the programs are that they volunteer in. I think it makes them feel, especially kind of for the teenage years where there's not a lot going on and unless they play sports, and it's good constructive time for them. And we are starting now, I think, to work more closely with the schools and really promoting volunteer work. But it's something that I find to be a good part of the SAC as well. Thank you.
Thank you. There is no question it's great to watch you guys and see the exhibits that are put on and the changes that are made to the building, and you've been so instrumental in that, and the exterior changes and some great stuff. I mean, one time Julie took me upstairs and there's books up there that identify all the plantings outside, and that kind of stuff is so exciting. Every time I go in that building, I see something new, doors that didn't exist before, or, walls that came down and all of a sudden opened up the whole place, and
Come by after the meeting, there's the walls.
yeah, there's walls back. That's what I understand.
It's good to see a group of happy faces.
So, Tom, you've got a big project in front of you. Best of luck to you.
Thank you very much.
And I just want all of you to know the village will help out in any way that we can. Just, as a joint thing, it's great to see your enthusiasm.
Thank you again.
Anybody else? Okay. In board presentations, next we have Aris Design.
Thank you, guys. He didn't color it blue. Yeah.
This section here. Okay. So you can see it. Yep. Can we do that? It's right here for the second. Okay. Here. Let's duplicate some of
Here's the blue.
Thank you, Julie. Yep.
So you told me to say the blue.
Maybe give one to Julie. Or the guy.
Mayor, trustees, Tim Rump from Aris Design. I also have Grant Wellman from my office, as well as Gil Flanagan, who's the attorney for the project. What you see, the aerial that you see in front of you is what we're calling 137 Pond Lane. It is west of Pond Lane, west of Lake Agawam. And we've been working with our client, we've been in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals to do some improvements within that 125-foot buffer setback from Lake Agawam. And some of those improvements also include work in the right-of-way. 2008, I believe, was the subdivision that created the 3 lots that you see that's shown there. And part of the planning board's review of the project, there was a traffic study done that was to improve the sight distances along Pond Lane. And they asked in that traffic study to do some clearing and regrading of the shoulder of the west side of Pond Lane in that location. And during that review process, there was a subdivision granted and a map filed, but it went no further. When our client came to us late last fall, we started to review the history of the project and looked at, where the project had come from. You'll see in some aerials that you're looking at now, the kind of the history. I think there was a Hearst mansion on the site back in the 30s. I remember it just growing up in the 60s and as a farm field. And when I started my career as a landscape architect, Mr. Frank Wyman built the estate, and this was one of the first estates that I worked on as a young landscape architect, which was 42 years ago. So it's interesting that it's come kind of back around. So as you can see, the property was at one point, farmed and disturbed, and then in the mid-70s, it was is when Mr. Frank Wyman built the present house on the middle of the lot, which is known as Lot 4 at this point. So what we made a presentation in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals for a Natural Resources Special Permit to do clearing within that 125-foot setback as well as within the right-of-way of Pond Lane, fully understanding that we would have to come before you to get permission to do that. During our analysis and working with the village planning consultant, Nelson Pope and Voorhees, we have done an extensive arborist report on the vegetation within that 125-foot setback, made some determinations. Part of the review of Nelson Pope and Voorhees asked that we study the implementation of a rain garden within the width, kind of the widest part of the right-of-way west of the Pond Lane physical edge. And you'll notice there's approximately 50 feet of width in that widest part as Pond Lane kind of curves along. What I'll do is I'll have Grant kind of talk to you about a little bit about the technical aspects of it. It's we have some detailed plans that we've presented to the Zoning Board of Appeals, as well as and made significant revisions. We met with Gary Gillespie as well and talked about that shoulder and what he would require, and we've adapted our plans or revised our plans to reflect Gary's input at this point. So we're here to present this project to you and ask for your consideration in allowing us to work within that right-of-way. Our client is committed to funding and doing the work, as well as maintaining that the work that's proposed that's in front of you. And any questions to that, I think Mr. Flanagan could deal with better than I could at that point. If there are any technical questions, I can have Grant talk about that rain garden design or anything like that if the board would like.
Well, Tim, I think one question, and maybe Gil can answer it, is always in these projects, we have Mr. Wyman here today, and tomorrow we don't know who's there, and how do we continue to protect the project?
For the record, Gilbert Flanagan, 21 South Main Street, Southampton. We did speak about that, and I think that any arrangement that we would have with the village, which would have to be something in writing, would have to be assignable to whoever buys any one or more of those lots that are involved with this, and a sale of that lot would carry with it whatever the relationship and obligations are between that owner and the village. And there's some precedent for that, by the way. I don't think any of you were on the board. Maybe Mr. Hattrick was. A number of years ago, the brick wall that's located at the end of Gin Lane opposite the beach club, part of that actually encroached on village property. And my then-client, God rest his soul, wanted to repair that and do some landscaping within the village right-of-way. And we worked an agreement out with that. I think I provided Mr. Bruin with a draft of the indemnity agreement that my client established at that time. So it's doable, and it could certainly be transferable and assumable by a new owner, which I think is a key point. And just along with that, as part of that agreement, we obviously, during the course of the work, had to provide insurance, liability insurance, naming the village, as well as an indemnity by the property owner. So I think that should allay your fears on that score.
Tim, I understand, maybe you can go, either you or Grant, and just take the board through first, based on the plans that you have in front of us, where the pond edge is, where the street is, paved portions, where your property lines are, and where these wetland boundaries are, so we know which elements and what we're doing here. But essentially, this is a request, not unlike what Mr. Flanagan pointed out to you was done in the past. But most recently, you just did it at the other end of Agawam and authorize a similar license agreement, or you will be authorizing. That's been something that's been through the Zoning Board of Appeals as well. So this is going to be heard at the Zoning Board of Appeals on Thursday, so they're sort of looking for direction as well from this board.
This, the plan that's in front of you, obviously Lake Agawam is here. This is Pond Lane, the actual asphalt, the edge of asphalted Pond Lane is in this location. You can see the red, this red dashed line is the line that was created at the planning board review of the subdivision, which shows, based on a traffic study that we had mentioned earlier, where there was some clearing and some grading to be done as part of that subdivision approval. This is the property line. So anything towards Lake Agawam is village right-of-way.
The green line is the property line. Is it?
No, this black line. See the black line?
Well, here, it's the hedge line.
Okay.
Right.
For
It's
us,
the property
green.
line.
Yeah, okay.
Tim, what's the northern boundary, and just as a frame of reference?
The northern, well, north is to my left. And this is the concert property, right? Yeah.
Just to get a perspective, where on Agawam are we?
Right. And then you can see the dock to the north where the ferry service, so you can get a sense of where that is, and then the bulkhead. So as we were talking about before, in this area where we have lots of width, we've worked with Nelson Pope and Voorhees and designed a rain garden that will handle drainage off of Pond Lane, as well as handling the existing drainage that's coming off of this lot number 4. These driveway locations that you see were also determined at the subdivision process, and there's still, as part of that final approval, they were located, and there's drainage shown for those to minimize, off-site runoff into the lake at that point as well.
So what I'm looking at is where you have the curb cut for lot number 4.
Right.
Just to the south of that
Yes.
is a rain garden.
Yes.
To the north of that, is there any additional rain garden there, or is it just there, and is it all headed in that direction?
It's all planting. We don't have enough space to do a rain garden in that area. And that's why the area just south of that exists. That's the existing driveway that's there for the existing property.
What is the wetland buffer? Just
The
to
buffer is, if you can see this dash line here.
Yeah, I see that.
This is the 125-foot setback. And typically,
I'm seeing the rain garden to the south, and then north, you said you don't have enough room. It looks like you have more room over there to
Well,
put another one if you wanted.
We have, because of the grading and the contouring, we don't, it doesn't allow us to do any more there, but we're planting native plants and revegetating that whole area and within that buffer. There's also, I'm sure you're aware, there's a couple of degraded wood retaining walls that are to the south of that existing curb cut for the property. They will be removed, and also part of that will be regraded back into our client's property, so that's much less of an impact from a sight distance as well as a grading and drainage issue. And again, we've worked extensively with Nelson Pope and Voorhees, and
No, that rain garden concept is yeah, is a spectacular improvement to what's there already.
So Chick is seeing this and is okay with this?
yeah.
Gary's here to comment as well.
And as I said, Gary, when we started to look at, you can see that there's a 10-foot strip along the west side of Pond Lane. That wasn't there until we sat with Gary and we talked about what we were trying to do, and Gary felt for the village, if we had a 10-foot native turf, like a tall fescue turfed area that could be mowed, would help with snow removal and everything else during the winter months, as well as being able to maintain the street. There's some street lights in those locations as well. So we were able to do that relatively easily.
So my question to you is, when I'm looking at the front cover here and I'm seeing this enormous lawn around this property, and then I'm seeing the rain garden, and I'm wondering if the runoff of this large lawn, this rain garden, will remove any of the pollutants that may come off of the lawn there. Is it big enough to do that?
It's big enough. We worked with Nelson Pope and Voorhees. We've created a drainage study that shows the square footage and the amount of water that we're taking into the rain garden, and all those technical data. That's been given to Nelson Pope and Voorhees at this point.
Okay.
And again, part of the reason too is that buffer, the lawn's receding landward because of that 125-foot buffer. So we're taking out there's incredibly amount of invasive species in there that are, the Japanese knotweed, the Tartarian honeysuckle, and that are really destroyed a lot of the native vegetation. We also have the Norway maples.
You have that on the land side of the road too?
Yeah.
The knotweed? Wow.
Yeah. And so that's all being taken out and replaced with native vegetation. And I think that, again, part of all of this as a cumulative aspect of it is going to help reduce the amount of water running towards Lake Agawam.
I have to tell you, I think it's a really exciting project.
Oh, it is.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's a wonderful project.
We're excited that we were involved, that the client came to us. We've worked pretty closely with him, as well as talking about how we'd really accomplish this. So it's great to come to talk to you and see if we can get this done.
So the current landowner is looking to do the work and undertake all the costs of it, both to construct and maintain. And then, of course, as Gil pointed out, then whoever new owner or owners, because it's subdivided, would be some part of that taken over that they would have to continue to maintain.
The central element of this is that would be transferable or assignable to a new owner. Right.
And the only thing you need from the village is basically approval to do so because it's in a right-of-way.
Well, and part of what Mr. Broom was talking about, we're going to the Zoning Board of Appeals, we have to get our natural resources personal permit. They asked us to come before you to get your input and your, basically your blessing. And then, so we'll be back again, for more of the detailed things at this point. So that's just kind of the first informational, meeting for all of you.
I've just got to ask the question because it was such an issue when we were looking at the other side of the lake. Here it isn't an issue because there's no scenery to look at, and that's a steep hill. What's the average height that's going to be through here? Do you know the planning materials?
Well, we have such a grade change. The road is down about elevation 8, and back in here, we're up at elevation 20. So we're using grasses and everything else. I think part of this is also to improve the views of Lake Agawam. We're trying to create views of Lake Agawam, so we're not putting a lot of tall vegetation in that as well. And also in the right-of-way, because of the sight distance issues, we're using low grasses. So that's the intent, and that was something that we worked, a long time with Nelson Pope and Voorhees on the species that they felt comfortable with.
That's key.
The other issue we had is we have a swan nesting on the other side. I don't know if we have any feathered friends over on your side. I see someone shaking their head there.
I haven't seen them, but it is those are issues, and we had some discussions about that edge. How do you people park there? People, so it's hard to manage. It's hard to manage.
Well, you will when you put that rain garden in, have some feathered friends in there, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
I know, floating around.
But that's why people go there.
And this one curb cut already exists, right?
Yes.
Okay.
The central one.
The central one, so
The
that
central one,
these two are proposed, but are not constructed at this point.
Right. And then to the north, I think there's a road. I don't know if there's an easement for the concert property that goes up. That road that goes to the flag lot in the back?
Yeah, it goes to the lots that are further west.
And the curb cuts are definitely part of the proposal? Is that something that may or may not occur?
Well, it's part of the subdivision that was approved at the subdivision approval with the planning board. Their locations are still subject to their review, but they at least the one in Lot 3 makes the most sense, because you can see there's a kind of a swale in the property that's high here and goes down and comes back up again. This is very high here. This all drains back this way. This is high. And then this location, again, seems to make the most sense because that's the lower point where we've got less grading to get onto the property.
And that was a 2008 approval, right?
Yes, it was.
And did they perform a secret for that?
Yes.
Okay, and that still is valid?
Yeah.
As of,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and that's where during the secret process is where the traffic study was done to determine the site distance, and site distance and what was necessary to solve that.
If you had any concerns about this at all, what would it be?
I don't know. I think to me, the concerns might be the other side of the road, the edge of Lake Agawam. And because there's that needs help, that edge, to me, and from my experience.
You're very right.
And then the possibility of this additional drainage somewhere else, those are always issues because of, Windmill Lane and everything else. But the edge of Lake Agawam is a concern.
It's just those, yeah.
Michael, you have Gary here. I don't know if he wants to come in.
Yes, if you could.
Yeah, I've had a chance to look at the old plan and the revised plan. It's certainly a very attractive plan there. Pond Lane is just a nice meandering, quiet road. I have no projects scheduled in that area where we would need that property, but legally, we would want to have some way to reserve the rights to that property should the road ever have to get moved, widened, parking, et cetera, and at the same time balance that if we're going to get a great gift like this, that they have to protect their own investment. So just somewhere down the line, 10, 20 years, we want to make sure that that property, if needed, would be available if we can strike a balance somehow on that. But again, I've reviewed the plan today as well as last week, and so far I'm happy with it.
You can verify Chick?
Yes, Chick. Well, Chick I haven't spoke to, verbally, but through email. Yeah, he's on board with it.
Mr. Mayor, just to answer what Gary's suggesting, this is already village property. We're not giving away the property. What's being asked by the landowners is more or less a license agreement to allow them to perform certain activities within our right-of-way, which is always revocable and subject to whatever the needs of the public are or the highway department to use that. Of course, here, they're trying to help you take some of the water off of the public street, which also helps Agawam Lake. So like you said, there's a balance here and a lot of benefits, but there's nothing in the long term that would preclude the village, if there is the need to do other improvements or otherwise, as the future needs of the village dictate. So.
And we could do that, or the village could do that at the village's leisure.
Absolutely. Okay. And that's the understanding, that's what the license agreement, between the landowners would basically represent, and they would be doing so with that knowledge.
And Tim, while I'm here, just a question of between the rain garden and the drainage for the driveways, would you have any idea what percentage of stormwater that would capture off that property?
It's not necessarily a percentage that we're capturing. It's more a volume of water that is calculated based off of a formula.
Let's say a 2-inch rainfall and
off of a 2-inch rainfall, and that's being calculated for the adjacent road area on Pond Lane and the adjacent hillside that we're revegetating. And then the curb cuts are handled independently by their own stormwater systems.
But in that formula, what percentage of stormwater do you feel you're treating? 100%?
When you say percentage,
well, your formula is basically a 2-inch rainfall in 2 hours, or
it's for a 24-hour period, yes. So 100% of that 2-inch rainfall in that area would be captured by the rain garden.
Okay. I mean, I do like it. I think it'll be an attractive enhancement for Pond Lane.
How much does it cost to maintain a rain garden? Because if it's assignable to the new owner.
I'd probably could throw it right back to Tim on that one. We've had rain gardens in the past that we've actually asked Parks Maintenance to take care of, and we've failed at it because it does take a constant thing. Do you guys have a budget in mind for maintenance?
We have an idea. I mean, the intent is, because it's native plants, that over time it's going to kind of take care of itself. It might need to be, they capture trash, which is a good thing, because then you can see it and you can take it out, and it doesn't go into a leaching pool and clog the pipe and everything else. So there's that kind of thing. We anticipate this project to be $250,000 that our client's willing to commit himself to, and I think that's significant.
It is.
So that's a significant improvement.
Tim, maybe we could hear a little bit about the construction, because you are going to sculpture back the landscape a bit.
Sure. So
Can I just say something, let's be about maintenance? One of the things I think that'll probably be required is that we'll have to post a 2-year maintenance bond after the plantings are installed to make sure that they work. So that's another protection that the village will get.
Thank you, Bill.
So Grant Wellman of Eris Design, for the record.
I think you're going to have to go by the mic so Charlie can...
Sure. Grant Wellman of Eris Design. Good evening, board members. So as far as construction goes, the first phase would be the demolition and removal phase which largely involves the removals of selected invasive material. What Tim put in front of you is that demolition and removals plan, and we've color-coded that based on the different types of programs and the different future uses. So the areas in red are reflective of the areas that will be regraded per the site clearing distance that Tim spoke of earlier. The areas that are hatched in that beige color, just right here. So that represents the area of the curb cuts and the associated grading. The area in blue shows where we'll be cutting back into the grade for the rain garden, and the area in orange corresponds to the removal of the wall. And so again, we'll be doing some grading in that area as well, so that we can handle that terrain with a natural slope instead of relying on these timber walls that have fallen apart over the decades. From there, once the grading's done, it's just simply a matter of revegetation. There's really no built structures in that area, so it's just planting and general plant installation and some temporary irrigation until those plants are established.
Brand, how much area, square footage, is the grading aspect?
That I don't know offhand.
More than an acre?
I would have to check that.
Just raising, maybe you've already been through this.
I have to imagine that it's less than an acre.
It looks less, but I
Yes.
just think of SWIP, making sure that we comply with that if it's becoming a requirement. So just be mindful of that. I suggest you talk to Chick Voorhees.
Yeah, we'll mention that with Chick.
The other thing you might mention is that, I always felt that was really an interesting design there, because you're basically lowering the area where the rain garden is for
Correct.
collection purposes.
Right.
A big point to point out, and the impact it has on not only surface retention of water, but the groundwater underneath it.
Right, and again, we've worked with Chick Voorhees to come up with some soil modifications that will help that process. It's all based on a mathematical formula where we've lowered that to a point where it's able to collect all that water from the adjacent roadway.
So really, the rain garden's not only capturing the runoff from the lot above, but it's also capturing from the road.
That's right.
That's a big plus.
And it's not a stagnant body of water that's going to sit there. It's going to collect and permeate very quickly following a rain event.
And right now it collects on the road.
So we're doing some soil modifications and enhancements to that, plus the introduction of vegetation. The roots open the soil up, so there's going to be some percolation rates that we've worked with Nelson Pope and Voorhees on, and there is science to it.
No.
It will look pretty as well.
That's a plus.
Any other comments from the trustees or anybody?
No, they covered what I was, as long as everybody's on board with it. And
Yeah, I guess you're looking for our approval and vote, and then you go into the ZBA?
Yes, we're going back on Thursday to the ZBA.
And then it would be in good form if you could come back to us after the ZBA and let us know what changes or recommendations that then they...
We'll have that permit by then, Michael, so we'll, you can reference a natural resources special permit, hopefully, and we can move forward with the legal side of things.
Yeah.
when actually are you looking to do this in all best case scenario?
Our client would like to start yesterday, which most of them do. So, but as we, we've got to work things out, and it's a complicated issue.
So realistically, again,
we could do this in the fall.
Oh, so the fall. So you're really looking to do this in the fall?
Well, we would do it now, but I think it's going to be a little while to get things worked out and get things filed. So we're going through the process, and if we get our natural resources special permit tomorrow, on Thursday night, we'll be back to you, and hopefully in the beginning of June, and we can keep moving with the process. So.
Well, I see if you do it during the summer, muddy road.
I know.
It's a problem.
That's an issue. That's why to me, that's where,
Any road closures while we need you foresee? I mean, is it just
not
all
that
to the
I
side?
foresee everything. We're going to kind of work our way, from the top down. We're going to do our clearing first, and we're going to hopefully use a local contractor who's knows what the village is. And
because when we get in the summer, fall, we have all the marathons and walks and runs, and so, and that's usually
well. And if we move into September, you've got the muster and things like that. So we have to be.
Yeah.
And I think that's all things we can work out with the building department and everything else. So we're aware of those.
Thank you.
Great. Council, do we need
So there's what I would think it would be fair for the applicant or their representatives or even myself to represent to the zoning board that the board likes the concept, that there's no issues, technical issues, at least at this point, and you'll be relying on your consultants in the zoning board in that process. What they would do upon issuance of the wetland permit, not unlike the other project, there will be a condition specifically subject to licensing requirement, which includes any insurance, maintenance bond, or other aspects that this board, can be even related to the timing that you just discussed, would be subject to this board's approval. So they would come back after that permit with any change to the documents, otherwise express that. Council will probably contact me about the form of documents and start that discussion with this board as to what your desires, and then you will adopt a resolution authorizing the licensing and so on. At that point, upon submission of those documents, they can commence work. So as they mentioned, there's a little bit to go on this, but I think the question is that they can properly represent to the zoning board that you're agreeable to the concept and want to move forward. So.
I want to see here.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Gary.
Now make it pretty, guys.
Practical and alluring.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
With no public hearings present, we move on to communications to the board.
Okay, at the last meeting, we had a request from the Southampton Elementary School to do the field day at Agawam Park on Thursday, June 14th, and we just wanted to let them know that we had potential conflicts there with regard to the playground being refinished and possibly a jumbotron with the PGA. I did speak with Rhonda. She has no problem working around that. There's a good chance, I spoke to Gary, there's a good chance that the playground will be done in time. In fact, they should be, they wanted to get it done by Memorial Day, but because of the incessant rain we've had, they were held up, but they should be working on it next week. So she's fine, and she would like to go forward with it. So just like to get that approved, if everybody's good with that.
Yes. I'll make a motion. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the second one is a request from Liz Burns from Rogers Memorial Library. Last year, they had done, I believe, 2 pop-up libraries at the Cooper's Beach, which were a huge success, and she'd like to request 3 more dates, June 29th, July 20th, and August 24th this year.
And what's involved with that?
They bring down a pop-up tent. They bring out books and information on the library, and just really informational about what's going on up at Rogers.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very
really
positive.
good turnout.
Yeah. It is.
Great.
Any comments?
No, it's all good
What
to
other
me.
dates did we previously?
June 29th, July 20th, and August 24th.
Didn't we previously approve other dates? Or
Not
is
for
this
this
the
year.
only
No.
dates?
This is the only dates for this year. You might have been thinking of the little library that we have at Agawam, but that's
Yeah, that's a little
that's actually
box
a
thing.
kiosk.
Box kiosk.
Yeah. So I'll make that motion to accept the dates of June 29th, July 20th, and August 24th.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolutions. Item 1, resolve that the reading of the minutes for the public session on May 10th, 2018 be dispensed with, that those minutes be accepted as filed by the village administrator. The actions taken at that meeting be and hereby are ratified and approved. Got a motion?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
2, resolve that the claims to the warrant dated May 22nd, 2018 totaling $830,104.26. Warrant 18 General Fund, $1,710.66. Warrant 12 Expense Trust Fund, $334,019.54. Warrant 12 Capital Reserve Fund be ordered and approved. Have a motion?
Make the motion.
Second?
Second.
Discussion. Page 1, areas design fees for Moses Lane Park, Barnwell House of Fires, $1,054.16. Daniel Berry, ambulance medical reimbursement, $1,000. Page 2, Cook Marin and Associates, insurance installment, $20,085. Brian Cook, Fire Department volunteer medical reimbursement, $1,000. Dependable hydraulic garage maintenance on vehicles, $1,347.94. James Gourier, Fire Department medical reimbursement, $1,000. East Island Asphalt Highway Supplies, $1,401. Peter Feeney, Fire Department volunteer medical reimbursement, $1,000. Firematic Supply, Fire Department truck servicing, $2,764.46. Fowler's Garden Center, Park Supplies, $2,375.44. James Frankenbach Senior, Fire Department medical reimbursement, $1,000. Galls LLC, PD uniforms, $2,835.61. Tristan Glanz, Fire Department medical reimbursement, $1,000. Global Montello Group, 2,808 gallons of diesel fuel, $6,497. Page 5, Randall Herring, Fire Department medical reimbursement, $1,000. Hildress, park benches, $1,277. Sean King and Balloon Legume, Fire Department medical reimbursement and ambulance medical reimbursement, respectively. National Grid on page 6, building utilities, $3,881.19. North Fork Design and Studio, Cooper's Beach uniforms and supplies, $5,672. Patrol PC, PD computer equipment, $6,176. Stephen Phillips Senior, medical reimbursement, $1,000. Physio Control, South ambulance maintenance, software ambulance maintenance contract, $1,925.05. Pine Barrens Printing, Cooper's Beach receipts, $1,163.18. Pitney Bowes postage for Village Clerk, $2,400. Page 8 rather, Nicholas Pobat, 2 reimbursements, both for medical reimbursements, one for, because he's in the fire department and the ambulance, so it's $2,000. Rapid Recovering, towing services for April, $1,250. Dan Rayner, fire department medical reimbursement, $1,000. Revco Electrical Supply, building supplies, $2,258.21. Stephen Rogowski, fire department medical reimbursement, $1,000. Page 9, Software Consulting Associates, supporting software for the tax receiver, $6,000. Anthony Stevens, Fire Department volunteer, medical reimbursement, and Susan Stevenson for the ARB, $1,000. Page 10, Trucking International, dump truck repair, $1,310.58. Vassal Systems, sweeper repair, $1,160. And Verizon Wireless phone bill for April, $1,857.92. Vertex Water Features, 3 bubblers for Lake Agawam, $11,628.82. And transfer to the capital reserve account for the balance of this year, $700,000. Next warrant is the trust warrant, BHB Engineering, design fees for the septic system at Lake Agawam, bathrooms, $1,710.66. And the capital reserve warrant, $334,019.54 to Motorola for the radios for the police department. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Item 3, resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the attached schedule of budget transfers to eliminate overages for the period May 11th, 2018 through May 22nd, 2018. Have a motion?
Make the motion.
Second?
Second.
Discussion. Item 1, $50,000 out of trustee special projects with $22,000 going to clerk personal, $7,500 in clerk contractual, $20,000 into justice court personal, and $500 to justice court overtime. Item 2, $17,500 from law personal with $15,000 going to DPW personal, DPW contractual $2,000, and heliport utilities $500. Item 3, $1,000 coming out of buildings seasonal going to buildings equipment. Item 4, $55,500 from contingency with $5,000 going to garage equipment, $15,000 to garage contractual, and $35,500 to unallocated insurance. Item 5, $30,000 coming out of police personal, $4,000 out of police supplies, with $30,000 going to police overtime and $4,000 to police equipment. Item 6, $4,000 coming out of fire miscellaneous, $4,000 going to fire personal. Item 7, $18,500 coming from safety inspectors part-time and $18,500 from contingency, with $36,000 going to safety inspection personal and $1,000 to safety inspection overtime. Item 8, $25,000 coming out of parks seasonal, $14,000 out of parks supplies, $2,000 into parks contractual, $2,000 to parks miscellaneous, and $35,000 to parks personal. And the last one is $4,000 out of trustees special projects, with $1,000 going into Cooper's contractual and $3,000 to Cooper's miscellaneous. All in favor?
Aye.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees approve the hiring of the following as employees at Cooper's Beach for the 2018 season. Lifeguards Dave Nichols, head lifeguard, $21 an hour. Mike Purcell, $20 an hour. Maggie Purcell, $14 an hour. Carolyn Oakland, $14,000 an hour. David Q. Nichols, $15.50 an hour. Andrew Farrington, $16.50 an hour. Patrick Maloney, $15.50 an hour. Jordan Nichols, $14 an hour. Kieran Marsky-Verteri, $16 an hour. Parker West, $9.50 an hour. Jaden Wilson Pepitone, $9.50 an hour. Bailey Sullivan, $16 an hour. Evelyn Purcell, $9.50 an hour. And Carolyn Palumbo at $13.50 an hour. In the ticket booth, Emmett Wetter. All these will be at $9 an hour. Daniel Plunkett, Amira Nation, Madison West, Kyla Seymour, Griffin Schwartz, Pat Medio, and Riley Zorko. Each attendance, William Hattrick, $9 an hour. Teddy Raffle, $10.50 an hour. Michael Finobargo, $9 an hour. Nicholas Morano, $9 an hour. Will Raffle, $9 an hour. Matthew Medio, $9 an hour. James Malone, $9 an hour. Ray Sweeney, $9 an hour. Daniel Alexeo, $9 an hour. Sean Godfrey, $9 an hour. And Ben Luss, $9 an hour. Have a motion?
Make the motion.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Well, I just wanted to bring up, because I spoke to you about this.
Sure.
Because it's a huge list of people running that beach. And I remember the days when the lifeguards cleaned the beach. There were 3 of them, and they ran the entire beach, and we had just a concession. And here we have a lot of people. And basically, this is what's required by the state. Is that correct?
Well, it's a couple of things. One is it's requirements, it's a state, and, we're starting off with a very, very big stable this year compared to what we did in probably previous years where we hired in May and then we hired throughout the season. Obviously, not all these people are going to be used at any point in time. Okay, right. We're doing 2 things with the lifeguards this year. We're doing a 9 to 5 shift and a 10 to 6 shift, and that will start in weekends through probably the 3rd weekend in July, and then we'll probably go to 7 days a week on that because the seasons are getting longer, people are staying longer, and we're going to do the same thing with the beach attendants. All right, we're very lucky with the lifeguards this year because usually we have a shortage. But we did a 4-week or 6-week advertisement, and we picked up quite a few new people, which is great.
Yeah.
Dave Nichols is very happy with that, and again, it's not any indication that we're overstaffing here. It's going to be the same staffing requirements we always do. It's just we have more availability and flexibility with these people.
So you're saying that all of these, every one of these names that were listed aren't going to be on the payroll as of right now?
Well, they're going to be entered onto payroll. Whether they're going to be actually working, that's another question.
Okay, that's what I mean. Yeah, okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the following budget adjustment for the 2018-2019 fiscal year. Increasing increasing ambulance part-time, $130,025, and decreasing ambulance salary, $130,025. What I want to do here is when we prepared the budget, we just had a one-line item, and that was ambulance part-time. What I want to do, since we now have 2 full-time employees, I just want to break this out separately to keep track of it, okay? And that's for the next fiscal year, not the current one, okay? So can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 6, resolve that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the hiring of Matthew Stetler as a seasonal part-time police officer for the 2018 season at an hourly rate of $26. Have a motion?
Moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The last one is resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the hiring of Ted Sklar of the law firm of Devitt Spellman Barrett, LLP, to represent the Village Ethics Board in the Hill Street Zuhusky matter at an hourly rate of $225. Have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, discussion items. I raised this at the last meeting, but we originally scheduled the election to be 9 to 9. And now, since it is an uncontested election, as we do in previous years, we'd like to change it to 12 to 9, because it's, cut down on some of the costs, and it makes it a little bit more palatable day.
Is that okay?
Fine by me.
Okay, so I need a motion by one or two of you, and a second by the others.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and Wayne, deer fence law?
Putting you on the spot.
So in your package, there is for the public copies of the proposed law. This has been something that's been on the table for a few years. I think the board, maybe Nancy or Bill may remember, or Rich, 2012, the proposal was presented by the building department. Many residents have inquired. As you know, currently the village code doesn't allow a fence greater than 6 feet in height, and that's only in the rear yards. A lot of places have been inundated with deer, damage to certain vegetation due to deer, and so we have redrafted a proposal based on comments that were received to the building department and what we could get out of the record. This would authorize the building inspector to issue permits for deer fences under certain limited conditions, particular where such fences are screened from the public right-of-way and adjoining properties by hedge or other materials. This proposal would put it out for a public hearing so you can get public comments on that.
What's the number? So it's currently 6?
6, this would allow it to go up to 8 feet.
8, so 2 feet.
And it has to be certain material, it has to be screened, without getting into too many details, but...
Because most of them are screened by hedges, and you have hedges that are much higher. So
exactly. There are some out there that are not legal currently, and some of them you can't see at all. And they're effective because they're almost embedded in the hedges that exist. But deer do penetrate hedges, so this is an added precaution. The process would authorize an application to go directly to the building inspector without necessary review. There is some component, as you know, the deer fence is only effective if you have a gate at your entrances. So parties who don't have gates or they're looking to have gates, it doesn't, the gate requirements that are currently required, you go to the ARB to get those, are still a component of this. So that aspect still gets reviewed by the ARB. There is a provision also that if this is only in a residence zone. So if you're doing commercial activities, I don't know where or how, but if you're on commercial property, it's all subject to site plan review. The only other aspect, there is a process where if you're in a multifamily residence zone, where there was a previous site plan approval, it requires the building inspector to seek an advisory report back from the planning board as to how that fits with respect to any conditions or limitations or the layout or design for that multifamily development. And of course, if it's in a wetland area, it's subject to getting a wetland permit. And it also gives the building inspector in certain circumstances in those wetland areas to consider not requiring the screening on the wetland side, the water side. But nonetheless, there's a number of elements in here. This has been something the building department has been discussing with the mayor and others perhaps over the last 6 or so years, and there's been various versions. So that's what is on the table. This would require scheduling a public hearing, sending it to the Planning Commission, and both the Suffolk County Planning Commission and the Village Planning Commission, since it is a zoning amendment, for their advice and recommendations.
Is there, Wayne, I ask you, is there a reason why we would take the application and send it directly to the building department?
This goes to the building department.
Right, but rather than making it go through site plan review?
It wouldn't go to site plan review.
Right, I realize.
This goes directly to the building inspector. The only aspects is that in connection with multifamily developments, which have to go through site plan review, and most, I don't know of any that, unless they're pre-existing, most of the multifamily developments had to go through a site plan review process, and we don't know if there were elements or conditions associated with that need to be taken into account. So this requires on the multifamily developments that the building inspector, before he grants the permit, to ask for an advisory report from the planning board. No approval, an advisory report.
I'm just wondering if all of them shouldn't go to the...
Well, again, it's residential, and why would the planning board be involved in reviewing a single-family residence, a deer fence and a hedge?
They can be really obnoxious, deer fences. They can be, you can go to areas, particularly on the North Fork, where are more open, and they really are pretty unsightly.
Well, the point at this point is this only authorizes the building inspector where they're screened with a hedge.
Okay.
But so it needs a gate and it needs a hedge, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one of the conditions, and the only place where he's authorized to perhaps not get it is on a waterfront property, on the portion where if the fence had to go along the waterfront side, that the landowner, there's some consideration there that maybe they don't have to put the hedging associated with the fence facing the water. That's the only place. Otherwise, the hedging or the landscaping is a component of getting the permit by the building inspector.
It has to, because currently you can have a 6 foot without requiring a hedge. Or
in the rear yard, you can't have a 6 foot in the front yard. So
it's 4 foot, 4 in the front, 6 in the back, and you don't currently need any type of coverage.
But now you can have an 8 foot,
would.
provided it's screened.
And if you're going to have it so that you're not driving down, and most of the places you see this are already hedged there.
Right, yeah, so.
So hypothetically, the multifamilies that it would be applicable to would be the Village Latch and Whitefield, right?
Well, there are 2 examples of multifamily development, but any, Bill's condominium or any, the Bishop Pond, or any multifamily development that was that received site plan review in the past, there might have been elements that related to site plan having to do with traffic circulation, safety issues, where is this fence going in conjunction with those, so you just have someone taking into account whatever those conditions or issues.
All that.
Exactly.
Okay, makes sense.
And the other concern that I'll just voice out is in the smaller zones, like the R7.5, an 8-foot deer fence around a small lot is going to be pretty...
Well, I assumed the way I contemplated that, but I said it wasn't really for me to, I didn't get any input from this board yet, obviously, nor did the building inspector. He just had his first drafts, and all the drafts were all resident zones. So this provides for an all resident, single-family resident zones, from the 7.5 to the R120, but certainly you could go back and, after hearing public input or review this further, that maybe you might consider it only on the larger lots.
Yeah. I mean, I know I have a big deer problem in my house, but Or if I put a deer fence around, I don't think I'd have a yard left.
So
I have hedge, and my hedge is pretty tall. I mean, my hedge is probably at least between 7 and 8 feet tall, so.
So that's the point. There might
Yeah,
be
that's the
properties that it is appropriate, but, the other question is if there's no hedge, then you don't get it, so.
It has to be there.
So
Takes
it's
a
not
long
as
time for
easy
that
as
hedge
just
to grow up.
putting up a fence.
So I'm going to ask the unpopular question. Has a study ever been done to address the number of deer that we have? Because I have a petting zoo in my yard right now.
I have one behind me. So,
I don't think anybody, but I think you'll hear comments that acknowledging that deer are very prevalent in the village.
we've had lots of meetings, thinning the herd meetings, and we've tried everything from bow and arrows, people joining properties so that you'd have 5 acres and they'd do a hunt within the 5-acre period, and we've never done any of it. And we should look into it again.
We should.
It's just, it seems as though they're
more and more and
everywhere.
more.
It's more and more, and their habitat is decreasing, and people are putting up electric fences too. I don't know if that's deterring them, or if they still can jump over it. And I feel so badly, but in the wintertime, they're starving. They're eating plants they really shouldn't be. They've never eaten before. And,
So shoot them or don't shoot them?
well, I mean, I didn't want to go to that
Well,
part,
it
but
is part of the discussion, ultimately, yeah.
but maybe we should have a deer discussion, to Nancy's
I
point,
think
and
one of
revisit
the
it.
best comments Bill down there ever said was, what did you say? Can't we just give him the morning after pill? That's the last time this came up, and that's about as far as we got with it. Unfortunately.
So this is proposed to schedule a public hearing
We
for
should
the June
schedule a public
14th meeting.
hearing, because it's been an issue that is just going around and around and around. And I think in the original time we looked at it, we were looking at a sunset clause, which you probably came across.
Sunset, okay.
That was in one of the drafts that said, let's do this for 5 years. I mean, so what happens? You then go back to each of the landowners and direct them to remove the fence?
Yeah.
I think there's
I think that's why we just...
sunsetting is one thing, but then what do you do thereafter? I mean, so I think that was part of the issues in the comments and the notes that I saw throughout the process, is that was one where the board, or is there some practical aspects of sunsetting a zoning law that then authorizes you to put a structure in? Then how are you going to get the removal of the structure if you do sunset? That's still on the table if you want to go that way, but I think you at least start the hearing process.
Yes.
I don't suspect you'll get all the planning commission, reports back by June 14th, but at least start the discussion.
So we should schedule a public hearing.
Yeah, got a motion to schedule a public hearing on June 14th.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Go for it.
Aye.
Your favorite. Comments from board members.
Can I just interrupt for a second? I get a
Comments from the
text.
counselor.
Was there an actual resolution to authorize the acquisition of the mower?
Yes.
Previously, okay. I got a text. Gary's included. I thought we did it.
It's getting nervous, huh?
You should
The Jacobson.
just send back no.
Don't want to need a PO first, so.
Yeah.
14-inch
should-
mower. Affirmative on a Jacobson 14-inch mower. 44, no, what was it?
HR 700.
14 foot, sorry.
Contract price $70,176. Tell them we'll only do it if it's cheaper. No.
Well, if you want to negotiate a better term, go ahead.
Okay. Trustee Uskramsky.
Just quickly, I want to remind everybody what this weekend's coming up, it's Memorial Day, and while it is plenty with sales and barbecues, please remember the actual purpose of it is to remember people who have fallen defending our country. So happy Memorial Day to all the families of people who have lost family members in battle and wars, in service. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Allen.
A plea to the rain gods that you tell everybody don't rain this weekend. I'd like to have some sunshine, and I'm wishing everybody a great Memorial Day weekend as well, and lots of congratulations to all the college students, high school students, and their families for graduating.
Thank you. Trustee McGann?
I too am wishing everyone a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. I think if we do have rain on Monday, we have to talk about that because we probably will have the service in the Veterans Hall and Cultural Center. But you'll talk about when that parade starts and if we are just going to meet over there. But everyone have a safe weekend. I hope you have a good weekend with your family.
Thank you. Trustee Hattrick?
Two things. Wayne, I know you have been familiarizing yourself with the problem we had on Woolley Street, which is the damnedest thing I have ever seen in this village. Greg, I don't know if you knew about it, but
that was a yard
down
sale.
there at 9 o'clock tomorrow, you can get a picture of somebody emptied out their house, and there was an eviction, and sheriffs and all this stuff, and it's right on the street, and it is the damnedest mess I have ever seen, and it's taken 9 days. I guess tomorrow is supposed to get cleaned up by what you said, but I don't know.
This afternoon, I think it
Do we
was.
have a picture of that? We took a picture.
Yeah, we have some
I think
pictures
it was
of it.
in the press, the
but-
picture.
Oh, it was, okay.
So you're talking about, just to elaborate, for those who are not aware, it's a property on the corner of Woolley and Hampton Road on northwest corner, and it was involved, the Deutsche Bank is the owner of the property, I believe. I don't know how they got ownership, but I would speculate that it was through a foreclosure a few years ago. In the meantime, they had tenants in there, and they started an eviction process, which was in the town justice court, and there was a warrant of eviction issued. Shortly after that, the tenants' attorneys made a motion to stay that judgment, which was unsuccessful, and thereafter that warrant of eviction was served upon the sheriff's office to have them evicted, removed, as well as all their personal belongings out of the property. And
That's a solution? Just throw it out on the curb?
well, the sheriff's office, that's their job. They do that, and then after they completed that, they gave notice to the village by delivering a copy of the order and stating that it was completed to Gary Gillespie. Thereafter, so while this was occurring, we tried to find out who, when, where. We have found out who the attorneys representing them. Code enforcement has been in contact with the property manager, all of which the attorneys are from Rochester, the property manager is from upstate New York. They've all been advised. I want to report that successfully, I was told today by the attorneys that they would be sending notice to the village clerk. I don't know if they did by today or it would be accomplished by tomorrow. We told them that under Chapter 95 of the code, there's a provision that allows our highway superintendent to undertake the removal of anything that is obstructing the public sidewalks. In the event that it's not, they will undertake to do that, and the cost will be a lien against the property. So we'll find out, unless this gentleman is here to report anything.
We bill a property foreclosure?
Well, maybe this gentleman wants to speak.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Daniel Greenbaum, attorney from Rasburiskin. We're a Westbury-based law firm. We represent Deutsche Bank in the code violation matter with respect to the reference to the upstate law firm in Rochester, that's Shapiro DeCaro. They represented Deutsche Bank in the eviction of the matter. I had met earlier today with the prosecutor, Mr. Richard Fernan, as well as Ordinance Inspector Angel Perez. I was given some emails, which include Mr. Stephen
I'll give you
Punch.
my card next, take yours if you don't mind.
Yes, of course. Which at least included you on the email chain, at least being CC'd.
Thank you.
Everyone that I've communicated with has certainly explained the urgency of cleaning up the property, particularly with Memorial Day upcoming. I've been in touch with my client throughout the day. They were telling me that they would be able to have it done tomorrow. So I just would be requesting, with respect to that violation, if we could perhaps give an additional day or two before it is ultimately issued.
Well, certainly, I think code enforcement hasn't issued. Code enforcement hasn't issued a violation against your client, but certainly you can sense the urgency on the part of this board. It's been over a week, and your client is well aware of their order asking the sheriff to evict him. In addition, my understanding is code enforcement, Angel Perez, has been in discussion with representatives of your client with the knowledge that the tenants had actually left, and that the material that was there was left and abandoned on the site, and that they could have achieved the removal of that material without having to go through the sheriff's office, and that's been happening for over the last month or so. So we're quite perplexed that it got to this point, and now it's been there, as Trustee Hattrick has said, for over a week. So we understand, and I think both code enforcement and our office is willing to work with you, but we want to see it done by tomorrow. Otherwise, I believe the village will undertake, under the sections of the code, the removal of the material, and that'll be a lien against the property, a cost, whatever it will be, but more importantly, that would probably be followed with the code violations. So we would really like to see that done tomorrow, and with your representation, we would hope, and I would like to get your number so we can stay in contact.
Yes, of course. I'll walk over a business card over to you. Do you happen to have a card?
Sure.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I'm requesting that clients send photographs, and then I would be sending that over to you, as well as Mr. Funch and Mr. Perez, as well as, and I'll also include it to Mr. Richard Fernan, since he had also been working on that.
I spoke to Mr. Fernan after your appearance today.
Okay.
So the question, did you hire a local contractor to undertake this work, your client?
Yes, they're telling me that they've hired a contractor.
Do you know who that is?
No, I don't have a name.
Okay. If you could follow up and at least give us that would give us a little more assurance as well.
Because I think we want it done tomorrow.
You don't want it to
It's been
sit
there a
for the
week,
weekend.
it's been there over a week.
Yeah, tomorrow's Wednesday. Thursday, people start arriving Friday, so yeah, tomorrow's the day.
And not just the 8 mattresses. It's the most unbelievable collection of crap that I have ever seen.
Okay, I understand.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
For sticking around and appearing.
Oh, of course. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Can I
Council.
just ask one more thing, too? Does the fact that Melissa Davidovich didn't show up tonight mean that they've withdrawn that proposal?
No, she was going to get back to us, and I guess no news is good news, or?
I haven't heard a word.
Yep.
Heard anything either?
I've become, I know there are maybe other directions to go, but I like that plan, and I'm sorry I didn't make that known earlier, but I may be all by myself, but I'd love to know if it is withdrawn. Anyhow, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Memorial Day, I think the parade, Rich, didn't it start like between 9:30 and 9:45 up at the Presbyterian Church, and then we go down to the park?
No, I think it's 10:45 to get, 10:45 starts marching to arrive at 11 o'clock, if we actually do march.
Okay.
Depending on what the weather's doing.
Permitting.
But typically 10:45, starting from the church down Job's Lane, arriving at the park or cultural center at 11 o'clock.
I'm glad I cleared that up. I'll be standing there by myself.
Yeah, you'd be there a little.
Waiting. Wouldn't be the
The
first
school,
time.
there'll be some of the people arrive early.
I'm teasing.
You do need a welcome.
You're on time all the time, which is
I'll meet you at the park, okay?
You had the,
Yes.
you had the 45.
I don't march so good anymore.
Just did 1 hour earlier.
The Ides of March.
We had a pretty busy week. Greg would testify to that. The spur closed, for those who don't know, on the Glennon property.
Oh, good, that's terrific.
Yeah. So finally, that eyesore hopefully will disappear, and we'll have a really proactive outside-the-box business arrangement down there, and they got some great things planned. And for those of you who haven't gone and seen their building over by the train station, you really should, because the inside they did a spectacular job on. You know, the brick and stuff is exposed, and the old floors. They've kept a lot of the hoppers and the grain bins, and it is really cool. They even have the old elevator. The old elevator, and they're bringing back, if you go outside there was the old weight walkway where the wagons would pull up and they'd weigh them. They're bringing back that scale, so pretty impressive. And I wish them certainly the best of luck. They got quite a project there, and better than them than me. And then the other thing that we accomplished that was really exciting, it was ocean rescue. We got a photo session down at Cooper's Beach. It was a great group of people that were down there. I think we have 8 individuals. They're going to present us with a list of who's part of the ocean rescue and their board members, and the makeup shortly, I hope they do. And we need to get up and get going and figure out, guess we'll need to put together a budget for them. Some flippers and goggles.
Red T-shirts.
And red T-shirts.
They have their rash guards, their donated rash guards.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
You
somebody
know,
donated.
but just a great group of very enthusiastic people, and you know, the really exciting thing really with Ocean Rescue is that it's a different group than we normally see sitting here in the audience or coming before us on the board. That, you know, a lot of them are, I got to say, old friends of mine, old surfer dudes of mine, and it's, you know.
Wow.
It's great to see them again and see their enthusiasm.
Oh, definitely. Good mix of people.
Yeah. The other thing that is really exciting, I think, is the U.S. Open. For those of you who haven't gone there, you've got to drive over to the clubhouse. It is unbelievable what they've done. Did you go over there?
Yeah, I just had to go. This is unbelievable.
No, the
Just
transformation is-
incredible.
What, with the tents and everything?
Yeah.
With the tents, and, you know, every tent has the Shinnecock logo on it, and all the golf carts and the activity, and it's just so impressive. You know, they had a little media gathering at one of the buildings I went to, and that building was huge. It was like a basket, bigger than a basketball court. And they had a whole media center with tables and chairs and stuff lined up for people, and eating area. And I just can't imagine the amount of organization that is taken. You know, I think, and I said it the other day, I think the invasion of Normandy had less stuff than this does. You know, I mean, it's just, it's incredible.
Omaha Beach.
Yeah. And, you know, it's going to be really exciting. You know, they're still working on the bridge, I noticed, because there's a little, I'm not quite sure how they're going to do that. Did you look at that? I've been watching them every day.
On the south side, it just looks skeletal, and I think they just haven't done
Well, because
stairway. And
I think they had to get the train section higher than the road section. So now there's a gap between that and
It should be interesting how it comes out.
Oh, yeah. Every day I go by, I check them out and I go, what are you doing today, guys? You know, and then the MTA has a platform that they've built there that runs, I bet it's 400, 500 yards, runs all the way down from the intersection heading east.
Wow.
That's
which is, it's, the whole thing is going to be pretty spectacular. You really can't wait till it gets going. And I guess the opening is on the 11th?
Opening is on the 11th, but they are going to be open to the public for the merchandise tent a few days prior. So June 7th to the 10th. From 10 to 6, he says, they're going to be open for
Shopping.
For shopping.
You can go, Julie.
I can go. I already have 2 pieces of merchandise I've gotten in advance. Ooh, I'm already in it.
Well, I'll tell you, the water bottles that they were handing out, just the regular water, had the Shinnecock logo on it,
I don't have that yet.
which is really, what happened to Poland water? So we got some really exciting stuff coming up here and a lot of fun stuff. And, SAC is another example, and there's an art show at the Cultural Center too, right?
Yeah, it's the Levi Bransky, who is one of the foremost golf painters, artists, if you will, and he has covered the Opens for a number of years now, as well as all the other tournaments. And so his exhibition will be at Southampton Cultural Center, and I believe the opening reception for that is Saturday, the 9th.
Yep.
And that'll be up through June 30th.
And one of it's small in comparison to all the logistics that they've done up there, but Julie's been instrumental in, is we really felt that somehow we had to get transportation from the village to the golf, and from the golf to the village. And what we've been proposing is to close off the little section on the other side of Monument Square between Monument Square and Lake Agawam. Julie's been reaching out to put a big screen TV in there, and it would have live golf going on, and we'll have maybe one of the golf movies. And
Maybe, yeah. But they'll definitely, the plan is that they will be streaming live, so that way if people are in the village and they're walking past, and there'll hopefully be some casual seating, if you will, so people can hang out and watch the clips.
Nice.
And then do the ride share.
And it was really great to be at the media thing because all the news, sports broadcasters were there. And there was the most technical questions. I mean, it was Rich, you would have loved it. But, they talked about, what if we get a rain and we get a soft, green, and how Shinnecock is mostly sand, so the green hardens up quickly and the ball will roll right. And, there was a couple of, I think the 14th hole, they redesigned that and extended it. There was a house or sounded like a shop or something at the end of the 14th hole that they moved so that
Eliminated,
yeah.
Extended the tee boxes back.
Yeah, they added a lot of length.
So they've done just incredible
16
stuff.
holes, amazing. The tee box that they have.
I think the 11th hole too was another one they said that they.
It's diabolical. They didn't move that guy.
No.
They stretched it, what, 74
It's the
plus?
shortest par 5 in the world.
Yeah.
It's a par 3.
So they also did an interesting thing. They had photos of the club back in the early 30s or the late 30s, and then present photos of the club and the greens and the fairways and stuff. And they showed how just naturally the grass had moved in, and the greens had gotten smaller and the fairways had gotten smaller, and they made a conservative effort. They brought it back to the original shape and design.
Right.
It was quite an experience.
Michael, I just want to point out is something different than all the previous opens, that the USGA made a point to have a presence right here, 2 doors down or so in the village. And I think that's significant. You can go in there, and the volunteers that are in there and provide any information, maps, information of access and whatnot. It's very important, I think, for the village and residents to know that they have that access. So any of the information that you couldn't catch because Michael didn't Give you enough, you can get it all there.
Swing wasn't right.
No, but yeah, it's a good point you brought that out, Wayne, because that's, I remember the USGA saying that's a business model they picked up a few opens ago, where they like to get into the hosting municipality first, community first, and really get to know and to get involved. So it's, you're right, it's a good part.
10 Main, right?
5.
5 Main.
5? 5.
It's that way. Which way you doing? A couple doors down.
Down the street when you go out to the right.
South.
Is that south?
That too, south. Unless you're challenged to that.
So anyway, I would tell anybody who hasn't gone by there to at least drive by. And you know, that clubhouse is the most spectacular clubhouse I've ever seen. I mean, the views from up there is pretty impressive. Quite something.
Can you mention the website? Our website, our new
Oh, yeah,
website?
that's
Which is
another
going to
exciting
launch
thing.
before our next meeting.
Julie's
Fingers
been,
crossed.
if you go into Julie's office, there's a big sign, what is it, 7 hours of quiet set, because she's been working on the website, you know, which always was a big thing when I sort of took office. I felt, you and I had talked that our website was antiquated and really needed some sprucing up. So I think we did more than spruce it up. You know, and Julie's been so instrumental in picking shades of colors. You know, we'd look.
That was a group
I would go, "Oh, that blue's fine." She goes, "No, it's not. We got to shade it down." And so I'm pretty excited about that.
And we're scheduled to launch May 31st. Fingers crossed.
That's great.
It'll just be a hopefully seamless transition to the new site, but that's, so within the next week or so, it'll launch.
What don't you do, Julie? SAC, job fair, website.
Sleep.
Oh,
Sleep. That's what I would do.
Oh, yeah, Julie, you know, it'll be 9:58, 10 o'clock, and I'll get an email from her, and I go, "Come on, Julie." But that website's going to be pretty exciting. We're going to be able to do a lot more stuff with it. People are going to be able to reach us easier.
Right, and it's also going to have the ability to spotlight more events in the village so that it kind of ties hopefully, a lot of our other not-for-profit organizations and village organizations together, so that it'll be more of a one place for you to go to, and it'll get all of your calendar information and village information, but then also special events that are taking place, our concerts in the park and things of that nature, so we can really make it attractive for people.
And, you know, what it really does is it brings more of the excitement that you see at SAC and you know, at the Cultural Center, where, you know, we have these great exhibits, great things going on, and a lot of activity and a lot of enthusiasm, and it gets lost when you go to an old website and,
Right,
you know,
and the
just get
Historical
this.
Museum and the U.S. Open, we'll have a spot on there for the U.S. Open to let people know, so hopefully you can see.
It's all good stuff. With that, is there any other public comment? And I make a motion to adjourn to executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters involving village employees.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.